And at 6:20, brothels on the rates. We investigate Southampton's way of clearing the red lights out of Derby Road. And could the nuclear cruise missiles be coming to East Anglia? And that disappearing town of Rochdale, it's left out of the AA book and getting more and more difficult to find on the motorway. Glyn Worsnip is back tonight with Home Office and the family of 15 St Bernards in Liverpool. That's tonight, Nationwide. Later on. It's 6:20 on Tuesday, November the 13th. Well, tonight we'll be investigating whether East Anglia should play host to the latest cruise nuclear missiles from America. We'll be visiting the disappearing town of Rochdale in Lancashire and talking to a family of 15 St Bernards from Liverpool. And Glyn Worsnip is back with Home Office. We're going to start, though, with a report on the subject of prostitution. Tomorrow afternoon, the City Council in Southampton will decide whether it should allow prostitutes to carry out their business in an area of the town where they could be legally supervised and subjected to clinical checks. Now, obviously, it's highly controversial, but there's a good chance that this plan will be approved. Because it's a big port, Southampton has a major problem with prostitutes who at the moment ply their trade in the Derby Road area of the city. And as a result, other residents who live there find that their lives are made intolerable by the prostitution business and the kind of clientele it attracts. From Southampton, Bernard Clark reports.
Sometimes there are fights. Every night, peeping toms and curb crawlers, noise and sightseers, the ever-present anxiety for residents' children. The 500 houses round Southampton's Derby Road have been blighted by a force more destructive than a motorway.
It's the type of people it attracts into the area. You get the detritus of humanity coming down. Peripheral crime on the edges of prostitution. I think that's about the worst aspect.
Ask almost any resident in the Derby Road area and you'll get a similar view. Many won't be interviewed, but few disagree.
Friends are frightened to come down here unless they can get a taxi or they can bring their husbands, get their husbands to bring them down here. They won't come down to this area at all.
Does it make you angry?
Angry? It makes me absolutely furious, and I don't see why we should have to put up with it here.
The milkman would find it standard terraced territory, and at 9:30 it seems just a little more typical than Coronation Street. But 3 hours later, it'll be a gossip's paradise, and by 6 o'clock, there's enough happening to fuel 1 million tongues. Like petrol and air, it's the mixture that explodes. And here on Derby Road, that mixture is a residential area and prostitution. The vast majority of the houses are ordinary, respectable family homes. Yet in about 40 of them are working girls, business ladies, women on the game.
Decided to attack, and to really attack, with no holds barred. And really, in the end, having made overtures to the Criminal Law Revision Committee at that time, we decided to go right to the top. We went to the Queen and we went to the Prime Minister.
That was 5 years ago, but the letters and the committees formed got nowhere. The residents began to fade away, and the few that still took on the prostitution were attacked back.
There's nothing so calamitous as failure. All your committee and everyone around you fade away in the normal course of events. I mean, 5 years ago is a long time. And suddenly you're left alone and you're isolated, ostracized, ridiculed. And I was attacked verbally in the streets, inconvenienced in every way. My wife was pushed off pavements by people coming at her at a very fierce pace. And she's not Muhammad Ali, you know, she couldn't hit them back.
Were you threatened?
I was threatened, yes. They said they would do me in, yes.
And so you decided to move?
I decided to move.
The problem lay with the law, changed in the late 50s to get prostitution off the streets and out of organised brothels. One prostitute working alone in a privately owned or rented dwelling is not against the law, nor is it illegal to advertise that fact.
I feel terribly sorry for the residents in the areas where these people live. I feel awfully sorry for them. I wish we could do more. But of course, their hands are tied by the law as it stands at the moment.
The openness and ease with which the prostitutes conduct their business makes the police look ineffective. All they can do is patrol and launch test cases when the advertising becomes too flagrant. All the side effects of prostitution and the blight that goes with it leaves them powerless.
There is no real offence for going around in the area looking for the girls.
So the men are almost immune.
Almost immune. I would say virtually immune, yes.
Nothing you can do.
Nothing we can do. Yeah. I think the legislators thought that we could reform prostitutes by giving them 2 stern cautions, and then they would give up their mode of life. Well, I'm afraid they don't. They go somewhere else and carry on exactly the same.
A major port is the pacemaker of British prostitution. What happens here will happen elsewhere 10 years later. Gradually, the council became involved. As property values tumbled, Derby Road was made an improvement area. The facade attended to, while the core of the problem was tackled. The Criminal Law Revision Committee asked the Southampton City Council for suggestions on how to improve the law. Reports were considered from Europe, from Germany, in particular from Hamburg, where prostitution is legal and controlled, and kept away from residential areas. The solution proposed by the Southampton Chief Executive is the recognition and regulation of prostitution within the law and the provision of adequate facilities outside residential areas. In short, that the council might find itself responsible for prostitution. Can I quote you from the Chief Executive's report, which says that if private enterprise did not see fit to take the lead, the whole burden of identifying sites, granting planning permission, and providing, letting, and even managing of these premises could fall on the local authority? Wouldn't that mean that, well, in a sense, you were supervising brothels?
Not necessarily so, because as the law stands at the present time, prostitution as such is not illegal, providing that only one prostitute is in a house or flat. And in the area in question, that if we had, say, a block of flats of 10, 12, 20 prostitutes occupying each flat, then that would not be unlawful. It is the fact that it is dotted around in an area where the next door neighbors, of course, are being inconvenienced by clients who in fact are knocking on their doors at all hours of the day and night. And so all that is needed really perhaps is some review of the planning provisions which would enable local authorities to possibly designate a suitable area, if a suitable area can be found, to transfer it out of residential areas to alleviate the problems that the residents have.
The ladies themselves, worried about loss of business and any control, oppose the idea with fervour. Without any suggestion on how to relieve the blight on Derby Road, they reject the idea of being grouped together or the necessary medical checks.
I don't agree with it. I think it's unfair and it's very unjust on us girls. And I think that it should never be allowed to go through. No, I think it's not only my opinion. I feel I'm talking on behalf of the other girls as well. I don't think that it should go through at all. I think it's very unfair.
Isn't it unfair on the residents at the moment, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can understand some of the residents' feelings, yes, I can. But there again, why should we have to suffer? I mean, there's people wanting to buy houses in Southampton. Yeah, it's all in the paper now, the council want more and all this. And then they're trying to ship us out. Well, if people don't want to live in this environment, they shouldn't come here and live. Plenty of other places to live, isn't there? And I mean, how many times do you read in the paper that there's a murder or a rape in Southampton? Very rare. I mean, we're only doing a job.
Is that how you see it, a job?
Well, you know, I mean, it's a living, isn't it?
Couldn't you then actually go to one of these say, council blocks to work there?
No, because then it's like we're working for the council.
Yeah, but you'd still be getting the money yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, then it's more organised. Do you know what I mean? It's like hardly any man is going to come to a council brothel anyway, because fear of being recognised. You know what I mean? Police and all this. You know what I mean? No, it won't work.
Perhaps more significant opposition to the council's scheme is based on less mercenary considerations. Public morality has now entered the argument, scandalised by the very mention of recognising, let alone organising, what many believe is sin. The deputy leader of Southampton City Council has said he'll resign if the proposal is passed, and churchmen throughout the Solent have begun campaigning for the scheme to be defeated.
Whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. A wound and dishonour shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away.
People, they say, have been too silent on an evil that destroys family life and demeans the women that commit such adultery.
I find it unbelievable to think that this city should be willing to legalise prostitution. It makes one wonder just what's happening. I suppose we know that things are getting worse and worse, but on one's doorstep, to legalise this pernicious behaviour, to encourage people to think that the city should provide for men who want to destroy their family life, destroy their children, destroy the women with whom they commit adultery, it's unthinkable.
You're really shocked, aren't you?
Well, I am shocked. I am.
All over Britain, in most of the bigger ports and cities, there's an area like Derby Road. That something must be done to help with the blight of prostitution is beyond argument, that the problem won't go away beyond reasonable doubt. Whatever happens, the final day-to-day supervision will end up with the police, who've studied the council recommendations with care.
I mean, it would make our job much easier, but I don't think it would ever work. That is my own opinion. I believe it works in Amsterdam, but it hasn't worked in other places because the prostitute is a bastion of free enterprise, if you like, and she does not like to be regulated. So really, I do not see that they would ever consent to go into one area. And if they did, I'm sure they wouldn't stand by the various regulations that would have to be made so that they could, control them.
Things like clinical checks and...
Clinical checks, filling out income tax forms, if you like, on their earnings. That may sound facetious, but if you're going to regulate them, then that is the type of thing they would do.
But it would make policing easier, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, very much so. Yes, because you then would, I suppose, not have so many offences. So we would have to tolerate prostitution. But is society ready for that? Is society ready to tolerate the legal prostitution? I don't know that it is.